Alrighty, Covers, as you found out from the last video, this is a three-parter to this Huntington Radio Museum trip. We was figuring it was only going to be a two-parter, but it ended up being three. So
lots of information.
Yeah, sit back and enjoy part 3 of this series. Thanks for joining, guys, and we'll see you
on that next good Cover find.
Interesting piece. We have 2 of them. This one we can get into. You can stack a dozen 78 records in this thing. It will lay one down, play it, pick it up, turn it over, play the other side, and go through a dozen.
So it's kind of like your portable CD player or changer, your CD changer, but that's a record changer, like your old jukeboxes were.
You laugh about that. There's one sitting out there. One of our fellows works on that stuff. Somebody's left it for him to work on. 300 CDs.
Me.
That's
me.
We dropped it off.
That's mine. Yes, absolutely. That's mine.
Old computer stuff. This is kind of a timeline. Some of this stuff looks old, like that guy there. It is. And to shock and amaze you, there are some nuclear plants still running on those things.
Okay.
Well, here's the reason. They do the job, and they don't crash like the new stuff.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'll take that. But this is kind of the timeline. I like this.
Computers, wow.
The first word processor.
Yeah. The pencil.
The first word processor I ever saw was similar to these things. Check this disc out.
Yeah, that's definitely a floppy
But
disk.
I had an attorney 45 years ago in Morgantown, and he had 2 women that worked for him. One was older, one was pretty young. Both called Nellie, and I swear he hired the second one just so he didn't have to learn the other name. But I went in one time, and it was the young Nellie, and I heard her voice, and I didn't see her. They had just bought a word processor, but the screen was about this big when it was sitting on her desk, and she's behind these big boxes. Where are you? And those were before you were allowed to hook up to the telephone line directly. You had to have acoustical coupling, and that's what that thing down there is.
Wow.
My first computer was this little guy right here that I put a real keyboard, a big keyboard on that my fingers could fit.
I had one of the old Commodore 64s.
You know,
when they came out years ago, back in the 80s, maybe early 80s, late 70s, I can't remember exactly. But
they used to have Commodore clubs and stuff, and they'd meet up at the vocational school. And I mean, those guys were doing all sorts of neat stuff with Commodore. I'm surprised it didn't hang on.
Right now, I wish I'd never got rid of my Commodore 64. Yeah, but yeah, I did. Yeah, that is so cool.
And over here we have various transmitting tubes.
Oh, wow.
Some displays up here. Some of these on the bottom are image tubes for TV cameras. That's a microwave. That red thing is a microwave tube. Early tube tester. Now that big thing back in there, in the bottom of it there's a puddle of mercury about this big. That's why it's in a case. But what it does is 3-phase alternating current hooks to these 3 terminals there, and down on the bottom out comes DC. Your mining equipment, everything ran on DC, but the power company feeds you AC. This made the conversion. They also used them during the war for microwave sites and stuff like that too.
And this thing here?
That is that is a TV tube, transmitter tube. The problem with it is they're tuned to a particular frequency, and you can change that. But when we went to digital broadcast, the signal was wider, and this couldn't do that. It could get to the frequency, but it couldn't do the width of it. So we wound up inheriting that. Now, you know what that is?
I have no clue.
It's a bacon cooker.
What? A bacon cooker?
It made microwaves for a large microwave oven that they fried bacon, hundreds of pounds of bacon at a time.
Wow,
For like
I'd
when
love
they make
that.
bacon bits and stuff like that.
Okay. That's what. Okay.
And
Wow.
that's all the pieces out of it.
Wow.
There's how your bacon bits are made, guys.
CB radios.
Yeah. Wow.
Now I'm reading over here, it says 30 years of CB radio. So CBs were just,
No, they're still out there.
okay.
This guy had a business, and when we were opening up, he showed up one day and he says, "You all interested?" We said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, if you'll give me some shelf space," he lived in Michigan. He was moving to Florida. He says, "I'll set you up next time I come through." He came through, and most of these are his. We've added some. That's a motorcycle face mask with a CB built into it.
That's cool. I've never seen anything like that. Ever.
That's why we're here. Now here's your original phones. These are copies. These are not originals, but they were, what do you call them? Knockoffs that they made.
Oh, switchboard.
Yep.
So cool.
I was looking. That's one of the early switches. Oh, and when we first moved up to the house, when I was 5 years old, we moved. It had a box like that didn't have a crank. It sat on the floor, and then it had a mouthpiece built on the wall, and you had to stand there and talk to the wall. But shortly after we came in, they put a dial phone in.
Yeah, this is like the one I have.
Okay, yeah.
Like right there.
That, but ours didn't have the dial in them.
Yep.
Thinking back about it, I think it had a place for dial, but it didn't have a dial in it.
Cordless phone.
That's actually an early cell.
Early cell phone.
You know,
How would you like to have to
I
pack
like
that
the
around?
early cell phones with the bag phones.
Yeah, I remember the bag phones.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. My mom used to have one. And get more glare than I am anything there.
Yeah. Well, what was that? No, I don't have the key to that one. Now that's all lab equipment, as we call it. Some of that's from colleges and universities' labs. Some of it's from NASA. This stuff over here is what we call service equipment. It's what your radio and TV repairman would use.
Okay. I have to remember not to move too fast. I tend to. Military.
This is what they call a BC 610. And what it was this transmitter and all this stuff over here. And it was a communications thing. Sometimes they were put in trucks. Sometimes they rarely use this one in aircrafts, but at sites and whatnot where they were going to be for a while. You could change bands and stuff. There's this box over here has all different coils. You open the top of it and change the coils to change bands. And depending on which band you were working, you used a different receiver to cover all of it. But it was quite popular. There were a herd of them in Alaska, and when I was up there about 50 years ago, 40 to 50 years ago, a lot of the old hams had these because they made good power, and they just changed the front end on them so they could change the frequencies pretty easy. But that's our soldier. That is a German, what we call a morale radio. Somebody took the for some reason couldn't read the dial, and they made that paper dial. That insignia is the German Air Force insignia. These were pieces of test equipment that set frequencies and checked frequencies of transmitters. These are receivers out of aircraft rigs, and we should have, and this is the transmitter. They had a number of those receivers for different bands and a number of those for different bands again, so you used a pair that matched what you were doing. And they took the old walkie-talkie out. The one guy the enemy really didn't want around was the radio man. And here you stuck him down in a foxhole, and he had this big whip saying, "Here I am. Shoot over here. Throw your grenades over here." Most of this over here was radar equipment. This key here performed two functions. It was covered so no spark, if you were in an environment that might explode, no spark would come out, but it would also strap to your knee. So if you're riding in a truck or a plane or something, you can send Morse code on your knee.
Okay.
We had an old fellow around here, I can't think of John's last name, but he was a ham, and he would drive to Florida working Morse code contacts all the way down and all the way back up. Our broadcast room, this is where a DJ would sit. I see we didn't get all the Christmas decorations down. The turntables, this is rather large. It happened this way because this, when we put this in, this table was available, and usually it was much smaller than this. This room's going to be redone, and we're going to have a TV place where you have a TV camera pointing at a backdrop or something. This unit, if you wanted to copy a 30-minute tape, you would put it up there in a take-up reel here, and then you'd put 5 blank reels and 5 take-up reels here. And you turn this thing on, and in about 30 seconds you got 5 copies of a 30-minute program. The only warning the guy gave us was make sure that your tapes are hooked to the take-up reel. Otherwise you have a pile of tape on the other side of the room.
Yeah, I would say so.
A disc cutter, or a record cutter, the big records were called transcripts, and originally we didn't have tapes. So when companies sent programming out, they sent it on these things. In fact, in the early 70s, when I was first teaching in Ravenswood, I was working at the radio station up there, and they would get a Pat Boone program. He was a recruiter, doing a recruiting program, and they'd get one of these every week. And they'd throw them out. I collected them, and then somewhere or another in a move, they got lost. Wish I still had them. There's a couple of transmitters from Charleston. Again, like I say, we got a bunch of stuff in here.
WSCZ.
This is the first color camera in the state. Now, it was purchased in about '57, and they didn't have color programming until well into the '60s because nobody had color TVs. So they couldn't sell color advertising because nobody had color TVs. So RCA talked to all the folks that sold furniture and stuff, gave them a real good deal on color TVs, so they'd sell a bunch of color TVs. And once they got out there, people started asking for it.
That is so cool.
It's huge.
It is. How would you like to have to do metal detecting filming with something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I to pack that around with you.
Yeah.
Turned over to public TV. And public TV ran on a lot of hand-me-down equipment. And Archmore had been a governor, and he was going to run again back in the last 30 years. Arch could not be in the same room with his competitor. He just was one of these people, if you're not for me, you're my enemy. I think we got another guy like that. But anyways, he wouldn't do a debate in the same room. So they did Arch up in Moundsville. They did the other guy down here in Charleston. And the technicians are going, please don't do that. Please, our equipment. Well, what happened was, this was on Arch. One of the color guns went out, and Arch turned green. And there was nothing they could do about it. Arch didn't look any better green, or maybe he was better green, I don't know. But he got governorship that time, and immediately got public TV a lot of money to buy new equipment, so it worked out well in the end.
Wow.
Again, it's one of those things where everything gets pushed.
We understand.
The cabinets there, if you have a radio that was made, a radio or TV, after the Second World War, chances are in that cabinet we have the schematic and information on it. Before the war, over here we've got those black books on the end from about 1923 forward to the war.
You know, you never know when we might have viewers that have old radios that they might find some information about by contacting them here at the Huntington, West Virginia Radio Museum.
We have a
It's
website
so cool.
if they've got questions or something, just
Yeah.
put it on there. Bob.
Well, see, that's something we've never, in our community, you know, people do little side hobbies and stuff, but I've never really seen anyone that talk about radios. So when we come up here, found
the
it.
80s ruined radio.
Yeah, we thought it'd be
I
interesting.
think Rush Limbaugh and that kind of programming, they just bought up. If you were a successful station, they went up and just bought them out. And you're stuck, you know, you can get country and western music, and you can get talk shows, or I call them hate radio, and sports. That's the other one. And then there's the religious ones too. Mm-hmm. And I know that the conservatives bought stations where they already had stations in that market, so they just turned them over to some of the churches and just to kill the competition. No, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Axles. I've got classroom. Over on the right-hand side, there's big green drawers, drawers or something, down the bottom. Yeah, they're in jars. They're in plastic jars, yeah. There's a company that just makes interesting cabinetry.
This is I like this. Mm-hmm. This little
Yeah.
cart. I like the music box.
And then there's more Zenith Transoceanics. This was their transistorized version. Most of the radios and stuff on top belong to one fella who passed away, and his wife called us, come get this stuff.
I like this. This
Yeah.
one here is nice. Definitely very interesting
Speaking
stuff.
of metals, down on the corner here, where the park building is, across from it, I've been told that
Harvey Town. She couldn't
That
tell me
wouldn't
exactly
surprise me.
where it was located. She
Well-
said when Pilgrim opened it, put that glass factory out.
yeah, but they still had the gas lines and stuff, which would be good for that sort of thing.
It sounds like I'm hearing water dripping. It just seems like I hear a drip or a static or something.
You know, Melissa, Mom used to have one of these little music boxes like this, and I don't know what ever happened to it. Like the one back there in the back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hope you guys have enjoyed the video today.
Oh, it's our switch upstairs. Figured it out. You got it figured out? I'm with you. I'm about wore out. Yeah, well, I'm old and run down.
So, you guys need somebody to come in here and get that fixed. Are you part of that?
They do that on the second months, or the even number of months, yeah. If they need an extra grader, I come in. I'm usually there, because that's usually my weekend, the dose of two.
What do you charge them?
Been some really interesting stuff, guys. We hope you all have enjoyed. Alrighty, guys, we hope you all enjoyed this third part of this video. I know we enjoyed the the tour. A lot of information there. There was some stuff that if I would have put everything in there, the videos, there would have been another video probably. But I think you caught the gist of all of it. If you're interested in anything about that, please go over and visit their webpage and their Facebook. So,
Yes.
Once again, thanks for joining, guys. And next week will be a detecting video, and we'll see you there, I guess. And take care, and we'll see you
On that next good Cover Find.